Right now, roughly 100 million adults in the United States alone are walking around with an organ drowning in fat. This accumulation isn't fueled by alcohol or prescription drugs. It is the direct result of the meals they grabbed for lunch. Every single day, 37% of American adults eat fast food. That's more than 1 in 3 people regularly overwhelming one of their most vital organs. The damage progresses in total silence, with most people never feeling a single symptom until the cellular destruction is severe. The liver weighs about 3 pounds and sits beneath your right ribcage. Despite its modest size, it handles over 500 distinct chemical functions every 24 hours. It builds the proteins needed for blood clotting, manufactures bile to break down fats, neutralizes toxins, and manages blood sugar levels between meals. Regular fast food consumption goes beyond increasing the liver's workload. It rewrites the organ's chemical operations. Consider the contents of a standard drive-through lunch: 1 burger, a large order of fries, and a regular soda. This meal delivers 60 to 70 grams of processed fat, 40 to 60 grams of sugar, mostly high-fructose corn syrup, and over 1,500 milligrams of sodium. The liver functions like a central water treatment facility for a city. Under normal conditions, it handles the daily flow with ease, filtering nutrients and maintaining clean blood. Daily fast food consumption is the biological equivalent of backing up chemical trucks and dumping industrial waste directly into the intake pipes. The liver initially compensates by having its cells work double shifts, but after months of this assault, the internal filtration membranes clog and break down. When the system finally fails, fat accumulates inside the individual liver cells, swelling and choking the interior space. This condition is medically defined as non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, or NAFLD. Data from 2023 shows that NAFLD now affects 32% of the adult population on Earth. The disease often progresses into NASH, a stage marked by active inflammation and cell death. Untreated, this leads to fibrosis, then cirrhosis, and eventually potential liver failure or cancer. The World Health Organization now classifies NAFLD as a leading cause of chronic liver disease worldwide. Preventable dietary habits are causing invisible, irreversible cellular destruction on a global scale. Buried inside this organ is a biological capability that shifts the entire timeline of recovery. The Greeks illustrated this through Prometheus, punished by an eagle tearing out his liver. In the story, the organ grew back completely whole every night. While scholars long dismissed this as fantasy, modern biology has confirmed the core of the myth. The liver is the only human organ capable of full regeneration from as little as 25% of its original mass. This superpower means the organ is biologically designed to heal itself, provided the cycle of damage is interrupted. Daily fast food consumption actively suppresses this regenerative process. Removing those meals for 30 days can be enough to reactivate the liver's healing protocol. We are going to track this reset hour by hour to see fat dissolve from cells and enzyme levels return to healthy ranges. Now, welcome to the world of BioState. To understand the recovery, we must first look at the weapon used in the initial attack. While grease and sodium play their parts, the primary driver of this cellular damage is sugar. The liver is forced to process this specific fast food sugar using the exact same biochemical pathway it uses to process alcohol. When you consume a fast food meal, a massive dose of high-fructose corn syrup begins a rapid journey through your digestive system. Most of your cells are built to handle regular glucose. Your muscles, brain, and heart use it as a primary energy source, burning it efficiently to power your body. Fructose is different. Almost 100% of the fructose you ingest is funneled directly to your liver. No other organ has the capacity to process it. When this sugar hits the liver all at once, the organ becomes overwhelmed. It cannot convert the sheer volume of fructose into usable energy fast enough to keep up with the influx. This creates a metabolic bottleneck, forcing the liver to choose between 2 paths: energy production or the storage of toxic fat. To manage the surplus, the liver triggers a mechanism called de novo lipogenesis, or DNL. Plainly stated, it is the creation of new fat. Through DNL, the liver begins converting excess fructose directly into fat molecules known as triglycerides. Some of these triglycerides are sent into the bloodstream as VLDL particles. However, a significant portion remains trapped. These molecules pool inside the liver cells with no exit path. Over time, these growing fat deposits cause the cells to swell and the organ to become sluggish. This process marks the biological onset of NAFLD. This specific liver damage is driven by the liquid sugar in your cup, which forces the liver into a fat production cycle that dietary fat alone does not trigger. On the first morning after your last fast food meal, your liver is still in crisis mode. The DNL machinery is running at full capacity, and stress enzymes like ALT and AST are actively leaking from damaged cells into your blood. 12 hours in, a shift occurs. Without new fructose entering the system, your insulin levels finally begin to decline. Chronically high insulin acts like a factory foreman standing on the production floor, constantly ordering the liver to manufacture more fat. As insulin drops, that foreman goes quiet. The DNL assembly line slows down for the first time in months or even years. Halting this production line is the essential first step. Only when the factory stops making new fat can the body begin the work of cellular repair. By hour 24, the drop in insulin activates an enzyme called hormone-sensitive lipase. For months, this enzyme was chemically suppressed. Now, it finally begins to break down the triglycerides stored inside the liver. Inside a single hepatocyte, or liver cell, the environment is visibly strained. The interior space is crammed wall to wall with fat droplets. Your mitochondria, the cell's power plants, are struggling here. They are physically compressed by fat globules and surrounded by inflammatory markers that interfere with their function. This pressure blocks the production of ATP, the energy currency your body needs for every thought and every heartbeat. This cellular suffocation is the reason fatty liver disease causes such profound, unexplained exhaustion. The power plants responsible for your energy are literally buried under fat. At the 48-hour mark, the cellular environment begins to clear. Inflammatory signals decrease, and the toxic pressure weighing on the mitochondria starts to lift. By 72 hours, your insulin sensitivity has improved significantly. Your liver is now transitioning into a different metabolic state. The organ officially shifts its objective. It moves out of fat storage mode and begins fat oxidation. The triglycerides trapped inside the bloated cells are broken down into fatty acids and shuttled into the mitochondria to be burned for fuel. This is the turning point. For the first time in years, your liver is generating energy from its own stored fat instead of manufacturing new fat from sugar. As the liver clears these deposits, the bloodstream reflects the change. Levels of the enzymes ALT and AST begin a measurable decline, signaling that liver cell damage is slowing. This chart tracks the results of a 2021 study where participants eliminated ultra-processed foods. Even within just 14 days, the decline in liver stress markers was significant. On average, participants saw a 17% reduction in ALT levels in just 2 weeks. However, the liver does not operate in a vacuum. It is linked to the digestive system through a biochemical superhighway known as the gut-liver axis. The biological changes along this gut-liver axis over the first 2 weeks will ultimately determine if the liver completes its recovery or if the healing process simply stalls. The biological cost of the daily fast food habit is physically visible in your internal anatomy. The damage starts at a mandatory, highly secure checkpoint deep inside your body. Inside you, your gut and your liver are physically linked by a major blood vessel called the portal vein. Every substance absorbed through your intestinal walls, nutrients, toxins, and bacterial fragments, must pass through the liver before ever reaching the rest of your body. Fast food strikes in 2 stages. It damages your gut lining first, which then triggers a second internal strike directly on the liver cells. In 2019, the journal Nature published a study on how common processed food emulsifiers impact human subjects. Researchers found that additives like polysorbate 80 and carbomethylcellulose thinned the protective mucus barrier lining the gut wall. When this shield thins, tiny fragments of bacterial cell walls called lipopolysaccharides leak through the lining and flow straight to your liver via the portal vein. Your liver recognizes these fragments as invaders. It activates specialized immune cells called Kupffer cells, which launch a localized inflammatory response to neutralize the threat. Daily fast food consumption keeps these Kupffer cells permanently activated. They continuously pump out inflammatory molecules that damage liver cells, accelerate fat accumulation, and push the organ toward NASH. Chronic exposure to processed food turns a normal, temporary immune defense into a perpetual state of organ-damaging emergency. 7 days after removing synthetic additives, the gut lining starts knitting itself back together. The mucus barrier begins to thicken, closing the gaps that allowed bacterial fragments to leak through. Beneficial bacterial populations begin to recover, increasing the production of a crucial short-chain fatty acid called butyrate. Butyrate acts as the primary fuel source for colonocytes, the cells lining your large intestine. As these cells receive more fuel, they strengthen and the gut barrier tightens. Because the influx of bacterial fragments has been cut off, the liver's Kupffer cells finally begin to stand down. Removing the friction of artificial additives allows the body's autonomous repair protocols to take over. By day 14, the shift becomes measurable in your blood work. A 2022 study from the University of Sydney showed a meaningful reduction in systemic inflammation markers when participants switched to whole foods for just 2 weeks. This chart shows the inverse relationship. As C-reactive protein falls, the liver's production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, rises, supporting the growth and communication of neurons. This explains the improved mental clarity and sharper focus reported by the second week. Your skin also begins to change. A healthy liver more efficiently clears excess circulating hormones, like androgens, which can trigger acne and oily skin. The health of your digestive tract dictates the neurological performance of your brain and the clarity of your skin. By day 21, the liver's intracellular environment undergoes a measurable change. As fat stores actively shrink, the dense deposits surrounding the liver cells recede. As the fat deposits shrink, the mitochondria inside the liver cells can finally resume optimal function. ATP production increases. This restored efficiency allows the liver to better regulate blood sugar stability between meals. Steady cellular fuel replaces the spikes and collapses of the fast food cycle, eliminating the deep energy crashes that occur in the mid-afternoon. At the 30-day mark, the results are clinically significant. A 2020 study in Liver International used magnetic resonance imaging to measure liver fat after 1 month of eliminating ultra-processed foods. The average reduction in liver fat was approximately 25%. In some participants, the reduction exceeded 35%. Blood panels tell a consistent story. ALT levels drop, triglyceride levels fall, and fasting insulin decreases as the liver unloads stored fat. 30 days of biological compliance is enough time to pull a vital organ backward from a clinical diagnosis and toward a healthy range. This rapid shift in inflammation and cellular fuel carries real physical consequences. Certain people experience unexpected side effects, and for some, the transition requires specific medical supervision. Understanding the biology behind these changes is often the difference between a failed attempt and a change that lasts. This capacity for recovery was actually recorded in ancient Greek myth, a story centered entirely on the liver's unique ability to regenerate itself daily. The body's regenerative power is not a modern medical invention, but a hardwired feature that activates the moment the burden of daily fast food is removed. The first week without fast food is rarely comfortable. This isn't a failure of willpower, it is the result of removing a specific biological stimulus. Fast food is engineered to hit the reward circuitry of the brain with precision. The combination of refined sugar, salt, and processed fat triggers a powerful release of dopamine, the neurotransmitter responsible for motivation and reward seeking. When this stimulus is removed after months or years of daily exposure, the brain notices. Withdrawal symptoms like headaches, irritability, and brain fog typically peak around day 3 or 4, especially for those whose fast food consumption included large amounts of caffeine. Over a 7 to 10-day period, the brain's dopamine receptors begin to recalibrate. They are adjusting from a state of chronic overstimulation to the normal, healthy levels of stimulation provided by real, whole foods. These symptoms are signs of a successful transition. They are the biological evidence that your neurochemistry is actively repairing its reward circuitry. While the brain recalibrates, a second reaction occurs in the gastrointestinal tract, driven by a sudden influx of dietary fiber. This transition often causes temporary bloating, gas, or irregular movements during the first week. For many people, this is the first time in years their digestive system has encountered high volumes of whole fruits and vegetables. Your gut bacteria are undergoing a population shift. Microbial species that thrived on sugar and processed starches are declining, while fiber-fermenting species are expanding. These fiber-fermenting species produce beneficial short-chain fatty acids. By the end of the second week, most people report that their digestion has improved beyond their previous baseline. This uncomfortable gut transition is an ecological cleansing. It lays the microscopic groundwork for systemic health. While this shift is beneficial, the rapid metabolic changes require caution for specific groups. For individuals with type 1 or insulin-dependent type 2 diabetes, removing fast food can drop blood glucose levels rapidly. Without medical adjustment to insulin or medication dosages, this creates a significant risk of hypoglycemia. For those with a history of eating disorders, the protocol must be framed as adding nutrient-dense, satisfying options. Rigid elimination can sometimes trigger restrictive thought patterns that do more psychological harm than physical good. Furthermore, patients with advanced liver disease, such as established cirrhosis or NASH, require specialized medical monitoring. Dietary change is a necessary component of their health, but it cannot replace pharmacological intervention for advanced disease. Respecting these boundaries ensures the 30-day protocol acts as a controlled healing environment rather than a dangerous shock to the system. Chained to a rock, Prometheus had his liver torn out daily by an eagle. Every night, the organ would regenerate completely, repeating his agony. In 1931, researcher G.M. Higgins at the University of Minnesota moved the concept of liver regeneration from the realm of mythology into the laboratory. Higgins demonstrated the liver can rebuild its original mass after losing 70% of its tissue, equivalent to over a kilogram in humans. This regeneration is triggered by hepatocyte growth factor, or HGF, an alarm signal instructing remaining cells to divide rapidly. This ancient encoded blueprint for organ regeneration is already inside you. It simply requires the correct biological environment to activate. The liver often fails to execute its regenerative blueprint because of the specific physiological environment created by a daily fast food diet. Chronic overloads of fat and sugar keep the liver's immune units, the Kupffer cells, in a state of constant activation. This creates a localized emergency where the liver is overwhelmed by inflammation and fat production. This unrelenting inflammatory response actively interferes with the HGF regenerative pathway. The liver cannot rebuild what has been lost while it is simultaneously under siege. A 30-day break from fast food acts as a biological ceasefire. It halts the localized damage and allows the regenerative signals to function without interference. Maintaining this foundation requires a shift toward whole foods, healthy fats from nuts and fatty fish, and consistent hydration. Long-term health is built through sustainable, incremental changes rather than short-lived overhauls. Stepping away from hyper-processed food gives your body's most resilient organ the exact biological peace it needs to rebuild itself from the inside out.